This is Chris Berry with Castle Wealth Group. We're going to continue that theme of talking about estate planning mistakes. And today we're going to talk about the estate planning mistake of not having a trust. If you like this information, please make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Christopher Berry is a leading estate attorney and advisor in the area of retirement and legacy planning. He has been featured in publications such as Forbes, Kiplinger's, Crain's Detroit, and more. He's the host of the weekly radio show and podcast, The Chris Berry Show. He's a national thought leader as it relates to retirement and legacy planning, and has authored the Amazon best-selling book, The Caregiver's Legal Guide.
Not everyone needs a trust. Now let me get that out of the way. Not everyone needs a trust. And a lot of the trusts that I review are just basic revocable trusts where maybe you don't even need that type of trust. Instead, you might want what's called a legacy trust or a castle trust. A legacy trust can protect your beneficiaries. A castle trust can protect your beneficiaries and protect you. But why I say not having a trust is a mistake is you need to understand how assets pass upon death. So first, we have joint ownership. So if you're a married couple, joint ownership is a great way to pass assets. Because if you pass away, it just goes to your spouse. From a tax perspective, makes a lot of sense. The second way would be through beneficiary designations. That's great for a spouse, but naming a child or loved one as a beneficiary if they're not your spouse might be a mistake, and we've talked about that before because of two reasons. One, their own poor financial mismanagement, which typically isn't an issue, but two, the big concern is the outside environment, divorces, creditors, lawsuits, bankruptcies, etc. So that brings us to the third way that we can pass assets, and that's through a trust. And there's different types of trust. We have revocable living trusts, we have legacy inheritance trusts, we have castle trusts, we have irrevocable life insurance trust, we have estate tax trust. There's lots of different types of trusts out there. And I guess that would be almost its own mistake, is not having the right type of trust. Not just not having a trust, but not having the right type of trust. Because I see a lot of people that have the wrong type of trust, where they're trying to avoid probate and protect their kids, but they just have a trust that avoids probate that does not protect their kids. And that's why whenever we review, we do what we call an estate planning audit to figure out what type of trust you have, or maybe what type of trust should you have. But again, if the asset doesn't pass through joint ownership, beneficiary designation, trust, then it ends up going into probate. So of those options, if you're leaving things to loved ones other than a spouse, you're probably going to want to rely on a trust. You don't want to rely on probate because that's a court process. You don't want to rely on joint ownership because that's its own mistake, and that could have some bad tax consequences, as well as some fiduciary issues. And then you don't want to rely on beneficiary designations because then it's an outright distribution. And now if that child were to get a divorce, lawsuit, creditor action, bankruptcy after you pass away, well, everything you've worked so hard for might go in a direction that you don't want. So that's why a lot of times, now not always, but a lot of times, depending on what your goals are, a trust would make the most sense because it can avoid probate. If it's structured properly, it can protect your kids. And again, if it's structured properly and you have the right type of trust, it can protect you from creditors as well as that devastating cost of long-term care. That's something that a trust can provide that joint ownership, beneficiary designations, and probate cannot. So if you want an efficient, effective, a way to protect the next generation, then a lot of times you're going to look at a trust as the estate planning tool to utilize. Then it's just a matter of what type of trust do you want. Do you want a basic revocable trust that avoids probate? Do you want a legacy trust that avoids probate and protects the kids? Or do you want a castle trust that avoids probate, protects the kids, and then also protects you from lawsuits as well as long-term care costs? So this has been Chris Berry, Castle Wealth Group. Hopefully you found this informational. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you.
Castle Wealth Group has clients across the nation and helps families plan, protect, and preserve what is important by creating a retirement and legacy blueprint.